Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Vanessa and I am an indie author from Toronto, Canada, and I publish under the pen name A and Sage. I write YA and I mostly stay within fantasy, contemporary, and epic, some sci-fi, and pretty much anything that's paranormal. And in today's little vlog thing. So again, if you are new here, I have kind of a mixture of content on this channel. It comes out once a week and I usually have kind of a mix of tips, some behind the scenes, some vlogs. I do a lot of planning videos because as an author who plots, I'm also an author who plans. And I talk about just being an entrepreneur, working for yourself, and being an author, and not just an author, but what it's like and what it takes to truly be an indie author in today's landscape of publishing. So if that sounds like something that you're into, I would love it if you joined the community and subscribed. But with that said, we have a vlog type thing today, and I thought it might be fun instead of showing you kind of like a behind the scenes of my life as I do when I do these, because well, it's repetitive. I do pretty much the same thing almost every day. But I've gotten some questions lately on TikTok. A few people messaged me and they asked me how it is that I became a full-time author or a full-time entrepreneur, I should say, because just being an author is not my full-time job. I do work for myself, but I have other things that I do. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I think a lot of times we see these authors out there that are doing great and I'm so proud of them. But we think it's just an overnight success, or just because one person is selling thousands and thousands of dollars of books every month and doing it full time, that's what it looks like for everybody. And that's how everybody gets started, right? But that's not what it looked like for me. I had a very bumpy start to becoming someone who works for themselves, someone who works from home. And I'm hoping maybe if I open up and I kind of share that so that you can see like the transparency there and what it really meant for me, that it might make it easier for you, that you don't put so much pressure on yourself, because it doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't happen the same way for everybody. For me, it happened in a way I think that was different from other people that I know that write full time or work for themselves full time. And so everyone's different and that's okay, right? So to start kind of like the story of how I got to where I am today. So you should know, if you are new, that I work for myself. I work from home. And I have a few different businesses that I run. So I have the author part, the writer part, of my business, the A and Sage part. And then I also have a cover design business that is actually the majority of my income, because it has kind of taken off, and I really love doing it. And I've always been a designer and a photographer. I've just been a visual person, which we'll talk about like in a little bit. But those are the two main things that I am doing. And the cover design is kind of expanding, and I'm doing courses now and things like that. So I'm expanding every single part of it. But for the most part, those are the two main big aspects of my career right now. And the way that I got here is different. I did always think I want to be a full-time author because, I mean, dream job, right? Like you write your stories and people want to read them enough that it supports you financially. Unfortunately, not the case for a lot of people. Very hard to get to it. If you do, then, I mean, my hat's off to you. That's freaking fantastic. But it is hard. And I didn't want to be disillusioned about it. I did want to be more realistic about it. And so I always had a full-time job. And I didn't just have like a full-time job. Like I had really good jobs, careers, really. I was a senior director in a company before this, and I ran the creative department there. And most of my life, I've been either like a senior manager or director of some sort. And I ran big teams. The team that I ran prior to doing this was actually the smallest team I've ever run. There were about 7 people, and they were all creative. So we had like videographers, photographers, graphic designers, and it was a really great job to kind of oversee that and to work with them on projects, because they're an amazing team. I still talk to almost all of them to this day because they're just like fantastic people. And so I had like a very good, stable career that's paid me very well. But then the world changed, right? And it was about 2 years ago now. The pandemic hit, the entire world pretty much collapsed. And a lot of companies started switching how they do things. And the company that I worked for, which now I think since then has been sold, and there's like a whole bunch of other changes that have happened, they let me go, basically. My position was no longer necessary, as a lot of higher positions were not at the time, especially when people are working from home and they were cutting on staff. And it completely makes sense business-wise. I would have done the same thing. And so my position was no longer necessary. So I was let go, I was packaged out. And so now I had two options, right? I either continue working in the field that I was working in, find something else during a pandemic, during this kind of crazy time that we didn't know what was going on back then either. Not that we do now, but like back then it was even more scary. Or I kind of take the plunge and try to do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And it wasn't an easy decision to make at all. And I had to sit down with my husband because, we wanted to start a family. And it was like a really stressful time in general to think about that, and to have that financial burden of me not having like a steady paycheck, and what it looked like, what the landscape of being an entrepreneur would look like, how long it would take to get there. And so we really had to kind of sit down and talk about it. And we both just decided that if I don't take this opportunity now, if I don't try for myself to see if I could do it, I never will, because the comfort of having like a regular job, a 9 to 5, working for someone else, it's too tempting, right? Because life is life still, as much as we'd like I'd love to live in the clouds and imagine this life for myself. But at the same time, I have bills to pay, I have a family, I have things I want to do. I have a certain lifestyle that we like. And so, it's too tempting it was to not go back to that and not to have that security, that financial security. And so I had a very small window of time where I could try and do this, risk something where it didn't feel like, it felt like a huge risk, but it also felt kind of not a huge risk because of where the world was. It kind of was a good excuse in a way, to go after my goals and my dreams. And so when I did that, I did start writing more. I published more books. I don't know if you could go back and through my catalog, and you can see that in 2020, I actually published the most books I've ever published in my entire authoring career. I think I published like 7 or 8 books that year, one of which was already written, so it doesn't really count, like it was before everything happened. But that's still a lot. Because I had this time, right? I was writing faster. I could book editors faster because editors also needed more work, as things go. And then I started designing more covers for myself. And as I started designing more covers, I started rebranding Shadowhurst. I just started working on this whole other aspect, this creative aspect that I didn't realize how much I would miss it if I just did only writing, because I was so engulfed in it in my other life, in my previous career. Like everything was about the creative. And so I got spoiled with creative. So I didn't realize how much I missed it. And so when I started working on covers, I started realizing, hey, I'm good at this. I love doing it. It was so much fun. It was a good little balance to my other writing creative brain, because it was still creative, but creative in a different way. And so I started doing it more and more. And so again, I had a chat with my husband, and I said, you know what if I opened a cover design company? And maybe it doesn't have to be a company at first. What if I just started offering cover design? I already had a publishing house that I published my own books under Cauldron Press. And so I thought, what if I've always wanted to expand Cauldron Press to something. I wasn't sure what it would be, but I did want it to be bigger than just me publishing my books under this publishing company. And so I thought, okay, so I have Cauldron Press. What if one of the arms of Cauldron Press is cover design or something creative that I really want to do? So started playing around with that because, again, this was my chance. I had the time to do it. And it took about, I want to say, 6 months probably to launch Cauldron Press Designs, that arm of Cauldron Press. It took about 6 months to launch. And the covers that I did then, I'm going to see if I can find any, and I'll put them on the screen. And they were okay. They weren't bad. But I'll put one, the first cover that I ever did. A little pre-made. And then maybe on this side or something, I'll put the most recent one for an author that I did that I got published, just so you can see, look at the difference between these two. So when I first came out with College and Press Designs, I was still learning and I was just having so much fun. And I didn't realize that as I learned, my covers got better, my design skills got better, but I also got to know more authors and I was more involved in the community. And I just started getting the word out there. And I've never had this happen before. I have had like Etsy shops that did well. I've always had my own kind of business. I was always entrepreneurial since I was a kid. So I've always had something on the side. But I've never had something that took off quite the way that the cover design business did. And I didn't realize that this was a skill I had that I didn't even know I had, because for the most part, like my skill was organizing other people's skills, right? Like creative skills and writing. Those are the only two things I really knew how to do. Like I was a photography graduate, so obviously I knew how to do that, and I had creative skills and I knew what I was doing. But for the longest time, that part of my brain, my creativity was so untapped that I didn't even realize. I didn't know where it could go. And where it went is that it's now pretty much 75% of my income is the design part. And the writing is about like 15%, and I have some other creative projects that I do for the other 10% of my income. And I'm always trying to diversify that portfolio because I don't want to get stuck where one thing doesn't work and then I don't have any financial stability coming in. And so there's always a balance. I'm always expanding stuff and doing new things. And now with Culture Press, with the course that's out now, the design course, and I'm going to have some more courses. It's going to be actually a free course, like a webinar that's coming out soon as well. So there's always something else. But as you can see, the way that I started, I didn't just like work somewhere and then I wrote a book and that book did well overnight or something, and then I became some sensation and I could quit my job and have a movie made of my book, right? None of that happened for me. I still write consistently. My books still make consistent money for me. It's not a full-time income. I am still an author. I still know quite a bit about the publishing industry because of it. But I'm not, I know a lot of traditional authors, actually. I know a lot of traditional authors who are bigger names, who still have full-time jobs. So it is what it is, right? You can't always guarantee a sale of a book. You can't guarantee the popularity of a book, how well it will get received in the market. And so it's always good to have something else. And my something else just happens to be something else that I also do for myself and not for someone else, which is amazing and kind of like a dream come true for me. To just make my own schedule and do what I want. Like, it's great, but it's not all writing, right? And so when in the year that this all came about, the questionable year, as I like to call it, where everything was up in the air, I was part of Facebook groups like the 20 books to 50K and all of that. And I was just always thinking like, I don't have 20 books. And so that's why I wrote so much that year, which is great. I mean, the stories just came and I had time and it was great. But that's why I wrote so much, because I kept trying to make that 20 books happen, thinking it will get me closer to a full-time income. And it's still, that also doesn't happen to everybody. I know people who have 30, 40 books that are just starting to get to that full-time income of just from their books. Because at the end of the day, between editing and if you don't do your own cover design like I do, marketing, like just buying paperback copies, like things like that, you're still like subscriptions you have to pay for, newsletters you have to pay for. It's still, your expenses are still there, right? And so it's always an uphill climb. You have to spend more to make more, and always just a little bit of a climb there. So not everybody can do that. That's why it's nice to have something else. But I just kind of wanted to come on here, and if you're in a place where you were kind of struggling and you're thinking like, I'm never going to get there and I'm never going to be like this author that's making like 30 grand a month or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm going to throw 6 figures, let's say a year, or even the 50K for the 20 books. You know, if I don't see myself doing that, my books aren't selling quite there. They're selling, but just you wrote books and that is so much more than a lot of people can say. It's amazing. You are creative. You have stories. You have power in you to be a storyteller. That is, in the history of the world, being a storyteller is always regarded as like the highest level of execution of the creative, because you can connect to people. You can document history. Like writers and like authors, writers, whatever you want to call yourself, are so important to the landscape of our world, right? And how it is shaped. And so you should congratulate yourself on that and be proud of that no matter what it makes. Because even if you don't make a full-time income off of it, it's okay. Like I don't, I have other things that I do, right? Like it doesn't mean you can't live your dream life in one way or another, right? And you might not have, like I was lucky enough that I had this opportunity to try something. And you might not have that right now, right? Because, it's tough right now. Like it's work-wise, it's tough. The world is still messed up. Like we're in a really tough situation right now. And so it's okay if you have a full-time job and you're also writing. That doesn't make you less of a writer. It doesn't make you less of an author. And it's okay if you haven't published anything yet. If you're just writing for yourself, everything's okay. Like whatever it is, whatever that looks like to you, that creative well being replenished, whatever that is to you, whatever gets you close enough to your dream life that you can say, I have tried this, whether I succeeded or not. Again, success totally relative, right? But if you can say you tried it, that's the important part. And that was the important part for me 2 years ago, is if I didn't do it, I will never be able to say that I tried to fight for myself and to do what I want to do. Even if I had failed and I went back to working for someone else, working 9 to 5 and not really enjoying my life as much as I think as I do now, I never would have known the difference, right? Because if I never got here, how would I know what I'm missing? But also, like, I would have always known I never tried. And I think that would be so much worse for me, at least. So whichever small ways you are trying, even if it's trying to write a little bit every day, once a week, if it's trying to publish your first book, if it's trying to publish your 20th book, however you're trying, that's the important part. Like, so don't compare yourself to others. I think that was like the main point of all of this. Everybody started somewhere different. I started very different from other people. I ended up somewhere very different from other people. And so it's, when you see someone out there that's a full-time author, there's a lot of stuff you're probably also not seeing. So just keep that in mind and don't compare yourself to people, and just do your best and do what makes you happy. End of the day, just do whatever makes you happy. And if it's writing, that's great. If it's not, that's also great, right? Just whatever makes you happy. That's the important part. So thanks for sticking around while I blab about this. This is a very different kind of vlog thing. But I hope that this helped you in some way and that you enjoyed our little chat here. And let me know in the comments if you like these kinds of chats. Like, I could do a couple of live chats here and there and just kind of catch up with everybody and talk about like real life things and not just pure writing and technical kind of writing stuff. So just let me know if this helped you in some way, or if you enjoyed hearing this, or if you were surprised about my story in any way. But I mean, with that said, thank you as always. And if you are subscribed, thank you so much for subscribing and for being here. And I look forward to talking to you guys every week. So I hope to see you again next week. Stay magical, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.